AITA for refusing to help my brother with his wedding after discovering he's been lying to me for years. I, 32M, have always been close to my younger brother, Mike, 29M. Growing up, we had the usual sibling rivalry, but I always considered us best friends. Our parents have always treated us fairly, though they favor Mike a little more because he's more outgoing and charismatic. I'm more introverted and analytical, so I've always let him take the spotlight in social situations, and I thought that was fine. A couple of years ago, Mike started dating a woman named Clara. From the start, I liked her. She seemed sweet, funny, and genuinely interested in Mike's happiness. Over time, I realized that they were planning to get married, and I was genuinely excited for them. When Mike finally proposed, I was over the moon. Here's where things started to get complicated. A few weeks after the engagement, Mike asked me if I could help him with the wedding planning. I'm good with logistics and organization, so I said yes. I even offered to handle things like the seating chart, contacting vendors, and helping with the budget. He seemed relieved and grateful, and I honestly thought I was doing something nice for my brother. Over the next few months, I started noticing little inconsistencies. Mike would ask me to handle payments for vendors, but then tell me that he had already paid, or he'd say that certain guests were confirmed, but then later claim they had canceled. At first, I brushed it off as him being disorganized, but then I started noticing more concerning things. One day, I was helping him with the catering menu, and I saw an email on his computer that he hadn't meant for me to see. It was a quote from a catering company with a payment plan, and the numbers were much higher than what he had told me he was paying. I confronted him, and he laughed it off, saying, "Oh, I must have misread that. No big deal." That felt off, but I let it slide. A few weeks later, I was at their apartment helping Mike and Clara with decorations when I overheard Clara talking to a friend about how she had to cover almost all of the wedding costs herself. I was shocked because Mike had told me repeatedly that our parents were contributing and that he had budgeted enough money himself. I asked her quietly if she was serious, and she confirmed it. I didn't confront her further because I didn't want to create tension, but I was starting to feel betrayed. The real breaking point came a month ago. Mike asked me to make a big payment to a photographer, saying it was already agreed upon and that he just needed me to handle it because he was busy. I checked his bank statements, something I hadn't done before because I trusted him, and I realized he had been siphoning money from our parents, from Clara, and from friends who had offered to help with the wedding. He had also lied to me multiple times about what was covered and what wasn't. The total amount of money he misrepresented was around $15,000. I confronted Mike directly. I told him I knew about the money and that I could no longer help him with anything. I explained that I felt completely betrayed and that I couldn't trust him. He reacted with anger and guilt-tripping. He said I was being dramatic, that I was ruining the wedding, and that I was turning into our parents by holding grudges. I tried to reason with him, but he refused to admit any wrongdoing. Clara later told me she was disappointed, but understood why I felt the way I did. She said she didn't know the full extent of Mike's deception until I confronted him. Since then, I haven't spoken to Mike much. He sent me a few angry texts calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to control his wedding. Our parents are divided. Some think I should help because I'm family, while others think I was right to step back. I feel like I'm a moral gray area. On one hand, it's my brother, and weddings are supposed to be about family coming together. On the other hand, he's repeatedly lied to me and others, and I feel like being involved would make me complicit in his manipulation. I genuinely don't want to be around him during this period because I can't trust him, and I feel emotionally drained just thinking about it. I've had friends tell me I'm overreacting and that I should forgive and forget because weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events, but I can't shake the feeling that helping him now would be enabling him. I also worry about the long-term implications. If I help now, will he continue lying to me in the future? I don't want a relationship that's built on deception. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my brother with his wedding after discovering he's been lying and manipulating me for years? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband sleep in my house after he claimed my room. So this is going to be a long one, but I need to get it off my chest. I, 28F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my fiancé, 30M. We've been together for 5 years, and we're planning to move into a bigger place soon. My younger sister, Emma, 25F, has always been close with me, and we generally get along really well. The issue started about a month ago when she got engaged to her now husband, Tom, 27M. Tom and I had met a few times before the engagement, and I'll be honest, I didn't have a particularly strong opinion of him either way. He seemed nice enough, if a little socially awkward. Emma is head over heels in love with him, which is great, but apparently that comes with a side effect. Tom thinks that being married to her means he gets to bypass basic social norms with me. The first red flag was a weekend trip Emma and I were supposed to take to help me move some things into storage. Tom insisted on tagging along to help with heavy lifting, which I thought was unnecessary, but didn't want to make a fuss about. During the trip, he started making little comments about how our apartment layout was perfect for hosting, and suggested that next time he and Emma could just stay at our place instead of booking a hotel. I laughed it off at the time, thinking he was just excited about spending time with us. Things escalated when Emma and Tom visited again the following weekend. I was out with my fiancé for a dinner, and when I came back, Tom was sitting in my living room, using my laptop. I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Just checking your Wi-Fi speed. I might need it when we stay over next time." I laughed nervously and said, we're not planning on hosting overnight guests anytime soon." He shrugged and went back to using the laptop, which I found incredibly rude. The breaking point happened last week. My parents live out of state, and they came into town for a visit. My sister invited herself over for dinner with Tom, which was fine. We had room for them. After dinner, Emma said she and Tom had decided to stay over at my apartment because they didn't want to drive back to their place late at night. I immediately told them no. I explained that our apartment is small, and we don't have an extra bed, and frankly, I'm not comfortable with them staying over uninvited. Emma looked surprised, but accepted it. Tom, on the other hand, started arguing with me, saying, "I'm just claiming the room for the night. It's fine, it's just one night, and it's not like you use it anyway." I was stunned. First, he literally had no right to claim anything in my home. Second, it wasn't about the room itself. It was about the principle of showing basic respect. I told him firmly, "No, you're not staying here tonight. You can either find a hotel or go home." Emma tried to mediate and said, "Come on, it's really late, and it's just one night. We won't be any trouble." I said, "I'm sorry, but it's not negotiable." Eventually, they left and found a nearby hotel. Afterward, my parents privately told me I might have been a little harsh. They said, "He's new to the family. Maybe you didn't realize how close you are with your fiancé and that this isn't a communal space." I get their point, but I feel like it's completely normal to set boundaries in my own home. My fiancé was incredibly supportive, telling me I did the right thing and that if anyone had a problem with boundaries, that's on them, not us. Since then, Emma has been sending me passive-aggressive texts like, "I guess you really don't want us visiting," or "Tom didn't mean anything by it. I hope you don't hold it against him." I haven't responded because I honestly don't know how to. I don't want to escalate things, but I also don't want to start letting people walk all over my space. Here's where I'm wondering if I'm the ****. My sister and her husband have been talking about weekend visits in the near future, and I've been very clear that they can visit, hang out, and have dinner, but overnight stays are off limits unless we explicitly agree ahead of time. Emma has been texting me about how they might just crash here for a night, and I'm losing patience. My friends mostly tell me I'm in the right, but part of me wonders if I'm being overly rigid. After all, it's family, and it's just one night. But the thought of someone just deciding they can sleep in my home without permission genuinely stresses me out. I feel like this could set a precedent where they assume more and more liberties. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband sleep in my home and sticking firmly to my boundaries. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she ruined her own life. This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 32M, have always been the responsible one in my family. I grew up in a small town, and my parents had their struggles financially, but they always emphasized the importance of saving, working hard, and thinking long-term. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, was the exact opposite. She's always been impulsive and prone to making really bad financial decisions. I love her, but honestly, I've spent the last decade trying to clean up her messes without much success. When Emily graduated college, she decided she didn't want a normal job. She got into day trading and some sketchy crypto stuff. Within 6 months, she was broke, borrowing money from friends, family, anyone who would give it. My parents helped her a little at first, but she burned through that money and even asked me to cover her rent once. I said no because I was already saving for my own house and future, but I did give her a small loan, $500, because I wanted to help without jeopardizing my finances. She paid me back after a few months, but the resentment started there. She would constantly guilt-trip me, saying I didn't care about her or that I didn't support her dreams. Fast forward a few years, Emily's financial recklessness escalated. She moved across the country on a whim, thinking she could start fresh without a plan. She had no job lined up, no savings, nothing. Within 3 months, she was broke again. That's when she started asking for help from me and my wife, Sarah, 30F. At first, it was small stuff, groceries, gas, even a few nights at a motel. I helped when I could afford it, but I drew a firm line about any big expenses. Last year, Emily's problems hit a peak. She had maxed out credit cards, bounced checks, and gotten into a legal dispute over unpaid rent. She called me in a panic, claiming she was about to get evicted and had nowhere to go. She begged me to let her move in with us for a few months. I told her no. My wife and I have a small apartment, and we just bought a house. We have our own bills, mortgage, and 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, and honestly, I couldn't fathom bringing that chaos into our home. She exploded on me, saying I was selfish and that family should help each other. I stood my ground, but it was stressful. Things got worse. Emily found a way to guilt my parents into giving her a loan that she never paid back. She started posting on social media about how her family abandoned her and how no one cared about her struggles. She framed me as the villain, claiming I had all this money and refused to help her while she was struggling to survive. My parents were upset, but tried to stay neutral. They know my perspective, but don't want to choose sides. The tipping point came 2 months ago. Emily called me again, more desperate than ever. She had somehow spent $20,000 on a failed online business and had nothing to show for it. She asked me to take out a personal loan to help her pay off her debts and keep her from losing everything. I told her I absolutely would not, and I explained why. I reminded her that she's made bad choices repeatedly and that it's not my responsibility to bail her out. She yelled at me, accused me of being heartless, and hung up. After that, she started spreading stories to my extended family that I'm cruel and don't care about my sister. A few relatives reached out to me, saying they were concerned and urging me to reconsider. I didn't. I sent a long message explaining my position. I love her, but enabling her behavior will only make things worse, and I cannot jeopardize my family's financial security for her. Now, Emily is threatening to cut me out of her life completely and has posted messages online that make me look like a terrible sibling. My wife is frustrated that this drama is never ending, but she fully supports my decision. Even though I feel bad sometimes, especially when I hear about her struggles, I know I cannot be responsible for her mistakes. Here's the thing. My parents still try to mediate and occasionally send her money, but I've made it clear that I will not. Emily keeps framing it as me being cruel, selfish, or heartless, and some distant family members have started questioning me because of her social media posts. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister money or let her move in with us after she repeatedly makes terrible financial decisions and expects others to clean up after her. Character count, 6,432 if you want. I can also create a second version that ramps up the drama even more, with family feuds, subtle betrayals, and social media conflict. So it mirrors the style of the most viral AITA posts. That could push it closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay in my apartment for a month, even though she says I'm being selfish. I, 30F, live in a small one-bedroom apartment in a busy city. I've rented it for about 5 years, and while it's not huge, I made it very comfortable for myself. I work from home as a freelance writer, and my apartment doubles as my office. Having a quiet and stable environment is essential for my productivity and mental health. My cousin, Lily, 28F, recently went through a rough breakup. She lives in another city and doesn't have a stable place right now because her sublet fell through. She called me last month and asked if she could stay with me for a month while she got back on her feet. She explained that her situation is stressful and she really needs a friend to help her through it. I told her I understood her situation, but that a month-long stay was not feasible for my apartment. I offered alternatives. I could help her find a short-term Airbnb, help her look for roommates, or let her stay for a weekend while she arranged something more permanent. I also offered to help financially if she needed assistance with a deposit or moving costs. Lily didn't take it well. She said I was being selfish and accused me of not caring about family. She said, "I thought we were close. You don't understand how hard this is for me. I can't just stay anywhere. I need you." I tried explaining that it's not about not caring, but about logistics, space, and my work schedule. I also reminded her that helping in small ways in the past isn't the same as letting someone live in my home for a month. She refused to consider any of the compromises I offered. She said, "I don't want to inconvenience anyone else. I just want to stay with someone I trust, and that's you." She also brought up past times I had helped her in smaller ways, implying that because I had supported her before, I should support her now. I told her that my boundaries have nothing to do with her worth or our relationship. They're about my living situation. After that conversation, Lily started venting to our mutual friends and family, portraying me as uncaring and selfish. She said I couldn't even help family in a time of need, and that I was choosing comfort over family. Some relatives reached out to me privately, questioning why I wouldn't let her stay and suggesting I should be the bigger person. I've tried to remain calm and empathetic. I've reiterated my offers to help in other ways, like covering temporary lodging, helping her move her things, or letting her stay for a few nights if needed. Nothing satisfies her. She insists that she needs a full month in my apartment, and anything less is not enough. I feel stuck. On one hand, I want to help her because she's family, and I understand she's stressed. On the other hand, a month-long stay would be incredibly disruptive to my life and work. I work from home and don't have a separate office or space where I could work without interruptions. I also value my privacy and the mental space my apartment provides. I'm worried that agreeing to this would create tension and resentment for both of us, especially if boundaries are crossed or expectations aren't met. Some friends have said I'm justified because my home is my personal space and I have the right to set limits. Others, including family, suggest I should compromise a little because it's family and she's in a tough situation. I've tried to compromise in ways that don't disrupt my life, but Lily rejects all of them. I feel guilty because I know she's struggling and because some family members are pressuring me, but I also feel my boundaries are reasonable. I'm afraid that if I cave, it will set a precedent where she can rely on me for long-term housing whenever something goes wrong. I also worry that refusing entirely will damage our relationship permanently, even though I've explained my reasoning calmly and offered alternatives. The tension has affected our interactions. Lily is distant and resentful, and our mutual friends are now aware of the conflict. I'm worried about family gatherings and future events if this continues to fester. I've tried to communicate my reasoning clearly and offer support in ways that don't compromise my home, but she frames any refusal as me being selfish or uncaring. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay in my apartment for a month, even though she says I'm being selfish. Character count, 6,635, white heavy checkmark. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after discovering the real reason I was invited. I, 28F, have always been close to my extended family, particularly my cousin, Rachel, 30F. Growing up, she was like a second sister to me. We shared holidays, birthdays, and family vacations, and even though we lived in different states after college, we stayed in touch. A few months ago, Rachel got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, 32M, and I was genuinely excited for her. When she sent out the wedding invitations, mine was addressed with a +1 space left blank. I was a little confused, but assumed it meant I could bring a date if I had one. A few weeks after receiving the invitation, Rachel called me. Her voice was cheerful, but sounded a little strained, which I didn't think much of at the time. She told me that the wedding would be relatively small, only close family and a few friends. She then said something that stopped me in my tracks. "I really hope you can make it because it would mean a lot to Tom if you were there." I laughed nervously and asked why Tom wanted me there specifically. Rachel hesitated and then said, "He wants to meet all the family before the wedding. He's especially curious about your job and your life choices. He's very interested in understanding who the important people in my life are." At first, I thought that sounded normal, maybe just a fiancé being polite. But over the next few days, I started thinking about the way she phrased it. Something didn't sit right. I called my brother, 26M, who is also close with Rachel, to ask if he had any concerns. After a long conversation, he confessed that Tom has a history of being controlling and judgmental. He apparently had a habit of forming rigid opinions about his partner's family before fully committing, and he sometimes pressured family members into uncomfortable situations. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I decided to confront Rachel directly. I asked her if she could clarify why Tom wanted me there so urgently. After some hesitation, she admitted something I could hardly believe. Tom specifically wanted me to attend so he could judge my life choices. He wanted to meet me because he was worried Rachel's bad influences might affect her after marriage. She said he had asked if I was financially independent, what my career path was if I lived alone, and even what my political and social views were. Rachel told me that she didn't feel she could refuse him because he was very serious about this wedding and very particular about family interactions. I felt stunned and hurt. I've always had a good relationship with Rachel, and the idea that my presence at her wedding was essentially a test to see if I met her fiancé's arbitrary standards felt awful. I tried to explain to her that attending under those conditions would make me uncomfortable and that I didn't want to be treated like some sort of character assessment. Rachel sounded upset, but said she understood my concerns. She asked me to reconsider, saying, "It's really important to me that you're there. I promise I'll make it clear that he doesn't need to interrogate you." I thought about it for days. I tried imagining the wedding, smiling, taking photos, all while feeling like I was being quietly evaluated. I realized that no matter what Rachel promised, Tom had already made his intentions clear, and I didn't want to step into that. I called Rachel and told her I wouldn't attend. I explained that I loved her, I wanted to celebrate her marriage, but I couldn't put myself in a situation where I felt judged and uncomfortable. After that call, the response from my family was split. Some understood, saying that it was reasonable to protect my boundaries. Others were furious. My aunt called me dramatic and said I was ruining Rachel's special day. My uncle told me I should just grin and bear it for family harmony. My brother supported me, but said he was worried about how this would affect Rachel. The most intense reaction came from Rachel herself. She was visibly hurt when we talked next. She said, "I can't believe you're choosing a hypothetical, awkward interaction over being there for me. I thought family came first." I tried to reassure her that it wasn't about choosing Tom over her, but about my own comfort and boundaries. She seemed to understand intellectually, but was still clearly disappointed. The day of the wedding, I didn't attend, and from what I heard, Tom was charming to everyone else, but kept asking about me. Some family members later told me he mentioned that he felt uncomfortable because I wasn't there, and Rachel apparently was annoyed with him. It felt like a mix of relief and guilt for me. I knew I made the decision to protect myself, but I also hated seeing Rachel hurt. Since then, there's been tension in family conversations. Some people avoid the topic. Others subtly imply I overreacted. Rachel has cooled off, but occasionally sends me passive-aggressive messages like, "Hope you had a good weekend while we celebrated," or "It was too bad you couldn't make it." I've tried to maintain a polite distance, but I can't shake the feeling that some of my relatives think I should have compromised, even if it meant feeling disrespected at my cousin's wedding. So now I'm left questioning myself. Did I handle this the right way? I feel justified in protecting my boundaries, but part of me worries that I might have been too rigid and that I've damaged my relationship with Rachel permanently. I genuinely love her and would never want to hurt her, but I also don't think I can justify putting myself in a situation where I felt like a test subject. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after discovering the real reason I was invited. Character count, 6,581 if you want. I can also create a second version of a long AITA story with a completely different scenario, but written in the same viral Reddit style. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law attend my wedding after she threw a fit over the guest list. This is going to be long, but I need to get it all out to make sense of what happened. So a bit of context. I, 32F, am getting married in about 3 months. My fiancé, Mark, 34M, and I have been planning a small, intimate wedding because, honestly, we just don't want a giant event. We are inviting only close family and a handful of friends, roughly 50 people total. Now, Mark has a younger sister, Sarah, 28F, who is complicated. She's the kind of person who expects to be the center of attention wherever she goes. We love her, but she has a history of being dramatic over small things, and it's something we've learned to navigate carefully. For this reason, when we were discussing the guest list, I made it clear to Mark that I didn't want to open it up too much to distant relatives or coworkers, just the people who genuinely matter to us. Mark agreed. The problem started when we told Sarah about the guest list. She immediately started complaining that she didn't understand why some of her friends and colleagues weren't invited. I explained that our wedding isn't big enough to invite every acquaintance, and that we wanted to keep it intimate. She rolled her eyes, said, "Well, that's not fair," and stormed off. We thought that was the end of it. Fast forward a week later, Sarah calls me out of the blue and asks why we haven't sent her a +1 invite. I was confused because our policy has been no +1s for anyone except for people in serious relationships. I reminded her that she was single and that the guest list is very strict. She responded by crying, telling me that it would be so humiliating to attend alone and that we obviously didn't care about her happiness. At this point, I try to stay calm and reiterate that she is more than welcome to attend, but we cannot extend the guest list or make exceptions. She didn't accept this and ended the call abruptly. A few days later, Mark's mom calls. She's very family-oriented and had heard about Sarah's meltdown. She insists that we need to compromise and invite more people for Sarah's sake. I explained that the wedding is already booked, we are over budget, and increasing the guest list is not feasible. She gave me a long speech about family obligations, guilt, and making Sarah feel included. I reminded her that Sarah is still being invited, and there is no reason she should feel excluded unless she refuses to attend. Then came the bombshell. Sarah sent me a long message on WhatsApp detailing exactly why she wouldn't be attending. She claimed that our wedding plans were selfish and toxic, and that it was disrespectful to family to make her feel left out. She ended the message with a sentence that really shook me. "If you won't invite my friends, I won't be there, and you'll regret it." I didn't reply immediately because I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to just delete her message and move on. Mark, on the other hand, was furious. He said we had to make this right or risk his sister never speaking to him again. I reminded him that he agreed to an intimate wedding and that bending for Sarah now would set a precedent that would make the whole event stressful and expensive. We argued about it for hours. Eventually, Mark said he would talk to Sarah himself. Mark called Sarah and tried to reason with her, but she escalated things. She accused us of being controlling and selfish and said she would make sure everyone knows we are terrible hosts if she doesn't get her way. By the end of the call, Mark came to me and said, "She's serious about not coming unless we give in. What do we do?" I told him that if she cannot accept the boundaries we've set, then she cannot attend. We cannot let one person hold the wedding hostage, especially someone who is acting manipulative. This decision did not go over well. Both Sarah and Mark's parents have been calling me nonstop. They claim I am alienating the family and causing unnecessary conflict. Sarah has gone as far as posting passive-aggressive posts on social media hinting at being wronged by family and family ignoring me for no reason. I feel like this is turning into a huge drama that is entirely on her, but my fiancé is getting stressed because his family is pressuring him to intervene. The day after Mark and I finalized the guest list without any changes, Sarah sent another message. I hope you have fun without me. Don't be surprised when nobody talks to you at the reception. At this point, I've just blocked her on WhatsApp because I can't deal with constant guilt-tripping messages anymore. Mark supports me privately, but he is clearly torn because he doesn't want his sister to be upset. I've tried to explain to everyone that our wedding is about us, not about pleasing every relative or friend, and that making exceptions for Sarah would open a floodgate of unrealistic demands. I've also made it clear that she is invited and would be welcomed, but only if she respects the rules we set. Despite this, both Mark's parents and Sarah have continued to express disappointment and anger, painting me as the villain. So, Reddit, am I really the A*** hole for refusing to change the guest list for my wedding and standing firm on the boundaries we've set, even if it means Sarah might not attend? I feel like if I give in, it will ruin the day for me and Mark, but the family is acting like I'm being unreasonable. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she got kicked out, even though it's causing a huge family fight. So, some context. I, 32F, have a small but very comfortable apartment in the city where I work. I live alone and like my space. I have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who has a history of making impulsive decisions and expecting other people to bail her out. She's smart and capable, but she also has a pattern of living very recklessly. Our parents passed away a few years ago, so it's just been us. Last week, Emily called me in a panic. She had gotten evicted from her apartment because she hadn't been paying rent consistently. She blamed her roommate, said there was a misunderstanding, but the reality is she had missed 3 months of rent and then tried to move out without notice. She said she had nowhere to go and asked if she could stay with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. I told her straight up that I wasn't comfortable having her move in. I explained that my place is small, I work long hours, and I need stability, which I don't have if she's moving in at a moment's notice. She got upset and accused me of being cold and unsupportive. She kept insisting that it would be temporary, just a few weeks. I reminded her that she has friends she could reach out to, and there are shelters or short-term rentals available. She said she didn't want to bother anyone else and that I'm her only family. I offered to help her look for apartments and gave her some contact for short-term housing, but I drew the line at her moving in with me. Emily then called our extended family, including my aunt and uncle, and told them I was refusing to help her in her time of need. Now there's this huge family drama. Some are supporting me, saying I have every right to say no and that she has a pattern of irresponsibility. Others are saying I'm selfish and should be helping my sister because family always comes first. Emily herself has been posting about this on social media, making it sound like I kicked her out in the middle of a crisis, which isn't true. The tension has escalated to the point where my aunt sent me a long email saying she feels I owe Emily a place to stay and that I'm being cruel. My uncle called to lecture me about family responsibility. Emily is now staying with a friend, but she's been sending me messages every day, crying and guilt-tripping me. I've been trying to set boundaries, but it's exhausting because I feel like everyone is siding with her or pressuring me to change my mind. To give more perspective, in the past, Emily has had similar situations. She's moved in with friends or family temporarily multiple times, and it always ends badly because she doesn't pay bills on time, stays longer than agreed, or gets into conflicts. I remember one summer she stayed with a college friend for 2 months, and by the end of it, the friend was so stressed out that they almost moved out themselves. I don't want to repeat that cycle in my own home. I also have health issues that require me to keep a calm and structured environment, which wouldn't be possible with someone moving in unplanned. I tried to explain all of this to my family, but anytime I do, they accuse me of not loving my sister and putting comfort over compassion. I've offered every other form of support, financial help for deposits, helping her search for apartments, helping with applications, but that's not enough for them. They insist that temporary housing in my place is the only real help. I just don't feel that I can take that risk. I can't jeopardize my own mental health and stability for a situation that has a very high chance of becoming unmanageable. So now I'm stuck in this weird position. Emily is frustrated, my extended family is upset, and I'm getting private messages from cousins and friends asking why I won't just let her stay. I feel guilty because I love my sister, but at the same time, I know I have valid reasons for not wanting her in my home. I'm not refusing to help her completely. I'm helping her in every other way I can, but everyone seems to think that not letting her live with me makes me the villain. I need to know, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me temporarily, even though it's causing this huge family conflict. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my late mother's house for her wedding after I inherited it. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my late mother's house for her wedding after I inherited it. I, 34F, lost my mom 3 years ago after a long illness. It was just me and my younger sister, Lily, 29F. Our dad died when we were kids, so mom was everything to us. Before she passed, she spent a lot of time talking to lawyers and making sure things were settled. In her will, she left me the house we grew up in. It's a small but beautiful place on the edge of town with a big backyard, old oak trees, and a wraparound porch. Lily was left a sizable amount of money from mom's savings and life insurance. The will was very clear, and mom explained it to both of us while she was still alive. The reason, according to mom, was that Lily had always wanted to travel and not be tied down, while I was the one who planned to stay in town and take care of the house. I also took care of mom during her illness, moved back home, and paid part of the mortgage and upkeep when things got tight. Lily agreed at the time and even said it made sense. After mom passed, Lily moved to another state, used her inheritance to travel, and eventually met her fiancé, Mark. I stayed, fixed up the house, and turned it into my actual home. I paid off the remaining mortgage, replaced the roof, updated the plumbing, and repainted almost every room. The house is full of memories, but it's also my safe place now. I don't rent it out or use it for events. It's just my home. Fast forward to this year. Lily got engaged and decided she wants a wedding somewhere meaningful and intimate. She came to visit and, during dinner, casually said she thought mom's house would be the perfect wedding venue. I immediately felt uncomfortable. She talked about having the ceremony in the backyard, a tent on the lawn, catering trucks in the driveway, and around 120 guests. She was already talking like it was a done deal. I told her I needed time to think. Later, I explained that I wasn't comfortable hosting a wedding at the house. I said it wasn't about money, but about emotional boundaries. This is the house where I grieved, where I rebuilt my life, and where I still feel mom's presence. I didn't want to turn into a venue with people drinking, dancing, and potentially damaging things. I also said that managing something that big would be stressful for me. Lily did not take it well. She accused me of being selfish and said I was hoarding the house. She argued that it's still our mom's house in spirit, and that a wedding would be a beautiful way to honor her. She said I got the house, and she didn't, so the least I could do was let her use it for one day. I reminded her that she got money instead, and that mom made that decision knowingly. Lily said money runs out, but memories don't. Things escalated when other family members got involved. My aunt called me and said I should be more generous, and that family homes are meant to be shared. A cousin messaged me saying I was ruining Lily's dream wedding. Even a family friend told me I would regret saying no. On the other hand, a few close friends agreed with me and said it's my property and my grief, and I don't owe anyone access to it. To try to compromise, I offered to help pay for part of venue or contribute financially to the wedding in another way. Lily rejected that and said it wouldn't be the same. She then implied that mom would be disappointed in me and said I'd changed since inheriting the house. That really hurt, and I told her to leave if she was going to keep saying things like that. Now Lily isn't speaking to me. She's told people that I'm choosing a building over my own sister and that I'm erasing mom's legacy. The wedding is still months away, and I'm getting constant pressure to reconsider. I feel awful, but every time I imagine strangers walking through the house, using the bathrooms, leaning on mom's old furniture, and turning the backyard into an event space, I feel sick. I genuinely don't want to hurt my sister, and I understand why the house feels important to her too. But I also feel like my boundaries are being ignored and that my grief is being treated as less important than her wedding aesthetic. I keep going back and forth between standing my ground and wondering if I'm being cold and unreasonable. So AITA for refusing to let my sister use my late mother's house for her wedding, even though it means a lot to her. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to share the money I received after selling a family heirloom. Even though my siblings say it belonged to all of us, AITA for this situation because I honestly can't tell anymore if I'm being selfish or if I'm just finally standing my ground. I am 34F. I have two siblings, my older brother Mark, 38M, and my younger sister Lena, 31F. We grew up in a pretty normal middle-class household. Our parents weren't rich, but they were careful with money. The one thing that always stood out in our family was a piece of jewelry that belonged to my grandmother, a heavy gold bracelet with an unusual clasp. It wasn't flashy, but everyone knew it was valuable. My grandmother wore it every single day until she passed away when I was 15. Before she died, she made a will. In that will, she left the bracelet to me specifically. The reason, according to my mom, was that I was the only grandchild who spent real time with her. I used to go to her apartment after school, help her cook, listen to her stories, and just sit with her. Mark was already away at college, and Lena was still very young and not particularly interested. No one argued about it at the time. The bracelet went into a safe deposit box under my name when I turned 18. Fast forward to adulthood. Mark has 2 kids and a stay-at-home spouse. Lena is single, struggles financially, and has bounced between jobs. I'm married, no kids, dual income, comfortable but not wealthy. Over the years, both siblings have occasionally joked about the bracelet being the family retirement plan or the emergency fund. I always laughed it off, but I also made it clear that it was mine and I intended to keep it. Last year, my husband lost his job unexpectedly. At the same time, I was diagnosed with a medical issue that required surgery not fully covered by insurance. We burned through savings quickly. I agonized over it for months, but eventually I decided to sell the bracelet. I went through a reputable auction house and ended up getting far more than I expected. Enough to cover my surgery, our bills, and rebuild a small emergency fund. When my siblings found out, everything exploded. Mark accused me of selling our grandmother's legacy. He said that even if the bracelet was legally mine, morally it belonged to all of us. He said I should have talked to them first, and that the money should be split 3 ways, or at least partially shared to help his kids and Lena's situation. Lena cried and said she felt erased, like our grandmother never cared about her, and that selling it without involving her was cruel. I tried to explain that I didn't sell it lightly. I explained the medical bills and the stress, and that this wasn't some impulsive decision. I also pointed out that no one ever offered to help us financially when we were struggling. Mark said that's different because they have responsibilities. Lena said she would have helped if she could, which felt unfair because she couldn't and didn't. Things got worse when Mark told extended family. Now I'm getting messages from aunts and cousins saying that while the bracelet was technically mine, keeping all the money is greedy and unkind. Some have suggested I should at least give a portion to Lena since she's struggling. Others say I should start a college fund for Mark's kids in my grandmother's name. My mom is torn. She says she understands why I sold it, but wishes I'd found a way to honor my grandmother by sharing. What hurts the most is that no one seems to acknowledge that this bracelet was given to me for a reason. It wasn't random. My grandmother made a conscious choice. I loved her deeply, and letting go of that bracelet was already painful. Now I feel like I'm being punished for surviving a bad year. I haven't spent the money on anything frivolous. It went to medical care, rent, groceries, and debt. The rest is sitting in savings because I'm terrified of being in that position again. I told my siblings I'm not giving them the money, and now they barely speak to me. Family gatherings are tense, and I'm often excluded. So, AITA for refusing to share the money from selling the bracelet, even though it's causing this much damage to my family relationships. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after I ruined her engagement dinner by telling the truth. I'm 29F. My sister Lily is 32F. Growing up, Lily was always the golden child. She was louder, prettier, and better at pretending everything was perfect. I was the quiet one who cleaned up messes, both literal and emotional. Our parents leaned on me to keep the peace, so I learned early that swallowing my feelings was easier than causing waves. This dynamic never really changed, even after we became adults and moved out. Lily has been dating Mark, 35M, for about 3 years. On paper, he's great. Stable job, charming, generous in public. Privately, though, he has a habit of joking at Lily's expense. Comments about her weight, her spending, her career, always followed by a laugh, and I'm kidding. Lily usually laughs too, but when we're alone, she admits it hurts. I've told her more than once that those aren't jokes, but she always says I'm too sensitive and that relationships require compromise. Last month, Mark proposed, and Lily was over the moon. She asked me to help plan a small engagement dinner with close family and friends. I agreed, even though part of me felt uneasy. During the planning process, Mark repeatedly ignored Lily's preferences. He wanted a steakhouse, even though she's vegetarian, insisted on inviting his co-workers she barely knows, and brushed off her concerns by saying she was being dramatic. Each time, Lily vented to me and then defended him 5 minutes later. The dinner itself was a nice restaurant. Everyone was congratulating them, toasting, taking photos. Mark had clearly been drinking. At one point, Lily mentioned she was nervous about wedding planning because of her anxiety. Mark laughed and said, "Well, someone has to keep you on track. If I didn't, nothing would ever get done." A few people chuckled awkwardly. I saw Lily's smile tighten, the way it always does when she's hurt, but try not to show it. Later, Mark made another comment about how he saved Lily from her boring single life. That's when something in me snapped. I said, calmly but clearly, Lily wasn't saved. She had a full life before you, and you don't need to put her down to make a joke. The table went silent. Mark looked shocked, then annoyed. He said I was overreacting and ruining the mood. Lily stared at her plate. The rest of the dinner was painfully tense. Afterward, Lily pulled me aside and started crying. She said I embarrassed her, that I made Mark look bad in front of everyone, and that I should have talked to her privately instead of calling him out. I told her I was sorry she felt embarrassed, but I wasn't sorry for standing up for her. That only made her angrier. She said I always think I know better and that I sabotaged the happiest moment of her life. Our parents are now involved, which was inevitable. They told me I should apologize to keep the peace and that Lily is under a lot of stress. My mom said, "You know how your sister is. You could have just let it go." My dad said Mark didn't mean any harm and that I shouldn't interfere in their relationship. Hearing that felt like being a kid again, told to be quiet so everything looks fine from the outside. Mark texted me the next day, saying I owe him an apology for disrespecting him. He said couples tease each other and that if Lily had a problem, she would speak up. Lily hasn't spoken to me since, except to send a message saying she needs space and that I ruined her engagement memory. Some mutual friends think I was brave. Others think I crossed a line and made it about myself. I keep replaying the moment in my head, wondering if I should have stayed silent. Part of me feels guilty because I know Lily hates conflict, and I may have made things harder for her at home. Another part of me is tired of watching her shrink to keep a man comfortable. I didn't yell or insult him, but I did challenge him publicly, and that's apparently unforgivable. Now the engagement is moving forward, and I'm not sure if I'll even be invited to the wedding if I don't apologize. I don't want to lose my relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to validate behavior that hurts her. Everyone keeps telling me to be the bigger person, which in my family usually means being the quieter one. So, AITA for refusing to apologize after calling out my sister's fiancé at her engagement dinner. AITA for refusing to give my sister the house deposit I saved for over a decade after she announced her surprise wedding. I am 34F. I work as a project manager in a boring but stable industry, and I've been saving aggressively since my early 20s. I grew up in a very chaotic household. My parents were loving but financially reckless, always borrowing from relatives, always one emergency away from disaster. I promised myself I would never live like that. I skipped vacations, lived with roommates far longer than I wanted, drove a car that was older than me, and put every bonus into a high-interest savings account labeled house. It took me 12 years, but last year I finally hit my goal for a modest down payment. My younger sister, Lily, is 29. We are very different people. She is spontaneous, charming, and has always had a safety net in the form of our parents and extended family. If she quit a job, someone helped. If she overspent, someone covered it. She is not a bad person, but she has never planned long-term. She has also been single for most of her adult life and loudly declared she did not believe in marriage. 3 months ago, Lily announced she was engaged to Mark, a guy she had been dating for about 8 months. Everyone was shocked, but supportive. 2 weeks later, she announced they were getting married in 6 weeks. My parents immediately went into panic mode because Lily had no savings, Mark had some debt, and they wanted a nice but simple wedding. Then came the dinner. My parents invited me over and told me they were proud of my discipline and responsibility. That should have been my first clue. They said Lily was under a lot of stress and that starting a marriage without debt was important. They asked if I would be willing to lend Lily some money to help with wedding costs. I said no. I offered to help plan, DIY decorations, babysit kids, anything but money. They looked disappointed, but dropped it. A week later, Lily came over alone. She cried. She said she felt like everyone was judging her, that I was always the golden responsible child, and that I had no idea what love felt like because I had never taken risks. Then she asked me for something different. She asked me to give her my house deposit. Not lend. Give. She said Mark's parents had offered to help them with rent for the first year, and if they could just get through the wedding and move, they would be fine. She said owning a house was a selfish goal for someone single like me, while she was trying to build a family. She promised that someday, when they were stable, they would help me back. I told her absolutely not. I said that money represented 12 years of sacrifice, and that it was earmarked for a specific purpose. She accused me of choosing a building over my own sister. I told her I was choosing my future. That conversation exploded. She yelled that I had always thought I was better than her. I yelled that she had always expected others to clean up her messes. She left in tears. Since then, my phone has been a nightmare. My parents say I'm technically right, but morally cold. My aunt called me heartless and said family money should circulate, not sit unused. My cousin said if I really loved Lily, I would want her to have a stable start. Lily has stopped speaking to me entirely and uninvited me from the wedding. What makes this worse is that I recently found a small townhouse I love. I put in an offer and it was accepted. When my parents found out, they said the timing was cruel and that I should delay closing until after the wedding to avoid rubbing it in. I feel like I'm losing my family over this. At the same time, I feel a deep, angry resentment that no one is acknowledging what they are asking me to give up. If I hand over that money, I am not just losing cash. I am losing years of safety, independence, and peace of mind. There is also no realistic plan for repayment. Lily and Mark are already talking about try for a baby next year. I keep replaying everything and wondering if I'm missing something obvious. Is this really just money? Or am I finally setting a boundary they do not like? AITA for refusing to give my sister the house deposit I worked over a decade to save, even though it may permanently damage our relationship. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she tried to publicly teach me a lesson. I'm 31F. My sister Lena is 34F. Growing up, Lena was the golden child. She was louder, prettier, and better at playing the role my parents liked. I was the quiet, practical one who moved out early, paid my own way through college, and learned not to expect much emotional support. We're cordial as adults, but not close. Lena got engaged last year to Mark. From the beginning, the wedding planning became her entire personality. Group chats, constant calls, emotional meltdowns over napkin colors. I kept my distance, but tried to be supportive. I live about 4 hours away and have a demanding job, so I was clear I couldn't be as involved as she wanted. She asked me to be a bridesmaid. I hesitated, but said yes to keep the peace. Almost immediately, it turned into a problem. She wanted all bridesmaids to attend multiple weekday events, a destination bachelorette, and weekly planning calls. I told her honestly that I couldn't take that much time off work or spend thousands of dollars. She accused me of not prioritizing family. I stood my ground, but offered to attend what I could and pay for my own dress. Things escalated when she sent me a 6-page Google Doc titled Expectations. It included things like mandatory social media posts praising her, a specific weight range we were supposed to stay within so the dresses would look uniform, and a requirement that we not announce any personal milestones during her engagement year. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. I pushed back politely but firmly, saying some of this made me uncomfortable. She exploded. She said I've always been jealous of her, and that this was my chance to finally be a good sister. Our mom backed her up and told me to stop being difficult. The final straw came at the bridal shower. I drove in, brought a gift from a registry, and tried to keep my head down. During the games, Lena stood up and made a speech about support. Then she looked directly at me and said, laughing, "Some people think they can half-ass being a bridesmaid and still get credit. This is about showing up. Right, sis?" Everyone laughed awkwardly. I felt my face burn. I tried to brush it off, but then she pulled out printed copies of her expectations doc and handed them out as a joke, pointing out the parts one had complained about. She framed it as teasing, but it was humiliating. I left early. Later that night, I texted her saying what she did hurt me and crossed a line. She replied that I was too sensitive and that maybe public accountability would motivate me. She said if I couldn't handle a little embarrassment, I shouldn't be standing next to her at the altar. I thought about it for a week. I talked to my partner and a close friend. I realized that this wasn't about a wedding. This was about control and making me small in front of others. So I sent Lena a message saying I was stepping down as a bridesmaid, but would still attend as a guest if she wanted me there. She lost it. She called me selfish, accused me of trying to ruin her wedding, and told the entire family that I was abandoning her. My parents called to say I needed to apologize and do the right thing. I said I'd apologize for any stress, but not for protecting myself. Then Lena sent a voice memo that changed everything. She said she was planning a fun surprise at the reception where each bridesmaid would give a speech about a personal flaw they'd overcome, and that she thought it would be powerful if I talked about my commitment issues and jealousy. I have no idea where she got that from, but it was clear she intended to put me on the spot again. I replied that I would not attend the wedding at all if she continued this behavior. She told me I was bluffing. I wasn't. I sent her and my parents a calm message explaining that I loved her, wished her well, but would not be attending an event where I felt disrespected and targeted. Now the wedding is in 2 months. The family is split. Some relatives quietly told me they thought Lena went too far. Others say I'm making it all about me, and that weddings are stressful and I should just suck it up. My mom says I'll regret missing my sister's big day forever. I feel sad but also relieved. For once, I didn't fold. Still, the guilt is creeping in. AITA for refusing to go to my sister's wedding after she tried to publicly humiliate me to teach me a lesson. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my wedding venue after she tried to take over my entire wedding. I, 29F, am getting married to my fiancé Mark, 31M, this fall. We've been together for 6 years, engaged for 1, and we're paying for the wedding ourselves. We both grew up lower middle class, and were very clear from the start that we wanted something nice, but not flashy, and more importantly, something that felt like us. We booked a small historic vineyard about an hour outside our city. It's not huge, but it's beautiful, quiet, and had a strict 1 event per weekend policy, which we liked because it meant no rushing in or out. My sister Lily, 34F, got married 5 years ago. Our parents paid for most of her wedding, which was a big hotel ballroom event with 200 guests. Lily has always been the more outspoken, opinionated one, while I tend to avoid conflict. Growing up, that meant she usually got her way. I thought we'd grown out of that dynamic, but apparently not. When Lily found out about my venue, she was immediately obsessed. She kept saying things like, "Wow, this is way nicer than my wedding, and if I'd known about this place, I would have done this instead." I brushed it off as harmless comments. Then she started making suggestions. First it was the flowers, then the food, then the guest list. She would send me long messages with links and ideas, none of which I asked for. I finally told her gently that I appreciated her excitement, but Mark and I already had a plan and wanted to make our own decisions. She said she understood. 2 weeks later, Lily called me and said she had an idea. She and her husband Dan, 36M, are planning a vow renewal next year for their 10-year anniversary. She said it would be so special if they could use the same venue as my wedding, since she loved it so much. I told her the venue book's out more than a year in advance and that I wasn't sure if that would even be possible. She said, "Well, you already have a relationship with them. You could just ask." That made me uncomfortable. I told her I didn't want to get involved and that she should reach out herself after my wedding. She sounded annoyed, but dropped it. Then things escalated. Lily started telling our relatives that we were basically planning the same wedding twice and that it made sense for her to reuse some of the vendors. I started getting calls from aunts asking why I wouldn't share my florist and caterer with my sister. I hadn't said I wouldn't. I just hadn't offered. The breaking point came when Lily showed up to one of my vendor meetings uninvited. I had told her the date earlier in passing, not thinking she'd do anything with it. She walked in, sat down, and started giving her opinions like she was part of the planning team. The coordinator assumed she was involved and kept directing questions to both of us. After the meeting, I told Lily privately that this was not okay and that I needed her to step back. She got defensive and said she was just trying to help and that I was being ungrateful. I told her this was my wedding, not hers, and I needed space. A few days later, my mom called me and said Lily was really hurt and felt like I was excluding her. My mom suggested that as a compromise, I let Lily and Dan use the venue for their vow renewal the weekend after my wedding. Apparently, Lily had already looked at the calendar and saw it was open. I said no. I explained that the venue intentionally spaces out events to protect the grounds and that I didn't feel comfortable asking for special treatment. The truth, which I didn't say out loud, was that I didn't want my wedding to turn into a shared family event or a comparison point. I wanted one thing that was just mine. When Lily found out I said no, she exploded. She accused me of being selfish, said I was hoarding the venue, and told me that I was trying to one-up her because my wedding was smaller but prettier. She even said I was disrespecting her marriage by not letting her celebrate there. Now my parents are split. My dad says it's my wedding and my decision. My mom says I should just let Lily use the venue because it wouldn't actually affect me and would keep the peace. Several relatives have messaged me saying that family should share and that I'm being dramatic over a location. Mark fully supports me and says this is about boundaries, not a building. But I'm starting to doubt myself because technically the venue isn't mine, and I know Lily's vow renewal has nothing to do with my actual wedding day. So AITA for refusing to help my sister use my wedding venue after she repeatedly crossed boundaries during my planning. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she reassigned my role and then blamed me for ruining her vision. I, 29F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lena, 26F. Growing up, I was the reliable one. I babysat, helped with homework, drove her to activities, and generally smoothed things over when our parents were overwhelmed. Lena has always been more impulsive and emotional, but we balanced each other out. Or at least I thought we did. Last year, Lena got engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years, Mark. From the beginning, she asked me to be her maid of honor. I was genuinely touched. She told me she wanted me by her side because I knew her better than anyone. I accepted and immediately started helping. I went dress shopping with her, helped pick colors, coordinated with bridesmaids, and even fronted money for deposits when her budget got tight. I never complained, even when it started to feel like a second job. Things shifted when Lena joined a new friend group through Mark's family. One woman in particular, Tara, became her new best friend almost overnight. Tara is loud, confident, and very into social media aesthetics. Suddenly, everything about the wedding became about optics. Lena started using phrases like the vibe and the look constantly. About 3 months before the wedding, Lena called me over and sat me down. She said she needed to talk about the bridal party. She told me that after a lot of thought, she decided to make Tara the maid of honor instead. She said it would make things easier because Tara was more outgoing and matched the energy she wanted for the wedding day. She added that I could still be a bridesmaid and that titles don't really matter. I was hurt, but I tried to be calm. I asked her why she didn't talk to me earlier or give me a chance to address any concerns. She said she didn't want to deal with my sensitivity and that she knew I would take it personally. That stung. I told her I needed some time to process and left. After that, communication got worse. Group chats were updated without me. Decisions I had already handled were reassigned to Tara without telling me. When I asked questions, I was told I was being difficult. Lena started implying that I was jealous and that I should be happy for her instead of making it about myself. The breaking point came during the dress fitting. Lena had approved a specific style for the bridesmaids months earlier. When I arrived, I discovered that everyone else was wearing a different dress in a different color. Mine was the original one. Lena pulled me aside and said she changed her mind because the new dresses photographed better, but she thought it would be weird to ask me to switch since I'm not built like the others. For context, I am taller and heavier than the rest of the bridal party, but I've never had an issue wearing similar dresses before. I asked why she didn't just tell me. She said she didn't want to deal with my reaction. I left the fitting early and cried in my car. That night, I sent Lena a long message explaining that I felt excluded, embarrassed, and disrespected. I told her I was happy to support her, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine while being sidelined. Her response was short. She said I was overreacting, that it was her wedding, and that I needed to stop causing drama. A week later, she called and told me she thought it might be best if I just attended as a guest since things were so tense. She said it would take pressure off both of us. At that point, something snapped. I told her that after everything I'd done, being demoted twice and treated like an inconvenience was too much. I said I wouldn't be attending at all. Now my family is split. My parents say Lena handled things poorly, but think I should still go to keep the peace. Lena has told relatives that I abandoned her and tried to control her wedding. I've received messages saying I'm selfish and dramatic, and others quietly telling me they understand why I'm hurt. I love my sister, but I also feel like I've spent my whole life prioritizing her feelings over mine. This feels like the first time I've drawn a hard boundary, and the fallout is intense. I genuinely don't know if I'm standing up for myself or if I've gone too far. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after everything that happened. AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding after she tried to fix my relationship and my seating chart behind my back. I, 29F, am getting married in 3 months to my fiancé Mark, 31M. We've been together for 6 years, lived together for 4, and generally have a calm, boring, happy relationship. My family, however, is not calm or boring. Especially my older sister Jenna, 34F. Jenna has always seen herself as the organizer, the mediator, the one who knows best. Growing up, she spoke for me a lot, decided what I meant, and told people what I really wanted. I learned to pick my battles, and for the most part, we've been okay as adults by keeping some distance. Wedding planning brought all of that right back. From the beginning, Mark and I agreed on a smallish wedding, about 80 people, simple ceremony, relaxed reception. We're paying for most of it ourselves with some help from Mark's parents. My parents offered a small contribution, but made it clear they didn't want control, which I appreciated. Jenna immediately volunteered to help. I said she could help with DIY decorations if she wanted, but that Mark and I would make the big decisions. She said she understood. She did not. It started with little things. She kept suggesting I invite people I haven't spoken to in years because family is family. She pushed for a bigger bridal party, even though I told her I wanted just my 2 closest friends. She kept asking if I was sure about my dress choice because it wasn't flattering enough, and sent me links to dresses that looked nothing like what I wanted. Annoying, but manageable. The real issue started with my dad. My parents divorced when I was 12. It was messy, and my dad wasn't around much for a few years. We've rebuilt our relationship slowly as adults. It's not perfect, but it's real, and I want him at my wedding. Jenna has never forgiven him and believes he doesn't deserve to be there, let alone walk me down the aisle. I decided years ago that Mark and I would walk together, no aisle handoff at all. I told everyone this, including Jenna. She hated it. She kept saying I would regret not having a proper moment, and that I was just trying to avoid conflict. I told her my decision had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with what felt right for me. She dropped it, or so I thought. Last month, my cousin accidentally forwarded me an email chain she thought I was already part of. It was between Jenna, my mom, and my dad. Jenna had taken it upon herself to propose a compromise. My dad would walk me halfway down the aisle, then step aside so Mark could meet me. She framed it as a surprise gift to me, something I was too stubborn to ask for but would appreciate later. She also included a revised seating chart she had apparently already sent to the venue, placing my dad at a back table and rearranging several of Mark's relatives to make room for extended family I had explicitly said we weren't inviting. I was furious. I called Jenna immediately. She said I was overreacting and that she was just trying to help smooth things over before they became a problem. She admitted she hadn't told me because she knew I would say no. She genuinely believed that once it was all set, I would go along with it to avoid drama. When I told her she had crossed a massive line, she accused Mark of controlling me and said I'd changed since being with him. That was it for me. I told her she was no longer welcome at the wedding unless she apologized and agreed, in writing, to stop interfering. She laughed and said I was being dramatic and that I couldn't seriously uninvite my own sister over one little misunderstanding. I told her it wasn't little, it was a pattern, and I was done. My parents are now involved. My mom says Jenna was wrong, but thinks uninviting her is too extreme and will tear the family apart. My dad feels awful and has offered to step back entirely if it helps, which just makes me angrier at the situation. Mark fully supports me and says the wedding should be about us, not managing my sister's behavior. Jenna has since sent me a long message saying she did what she did out of love, that weddings are emotional, and that I'm punishing her for caring. She still hasn't apologized. She's telling relatives that I'm choosing my fiancé over my family and that I'll regret this when I'm older. Part of me feels relieved imagining the wedding without constantly watching what Jenna might do next. Another part of me feels sick thinking about the fallout and the possibility that I'm overreacting to what she sees as help. So AITA for uninviting my sister from my wedding after she went behind my back to change major decisions and involve my estranged parent without my consent? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she changed my role and publicly embarrassed me? I am 33F and my sister is 29F. We grew up very close, mostly because our parents worked constantly and I ended up being more of a second parent than a sibling. I helped her with homework, took her to activities, and when our parents split, I was the one who made sure she still felt safe and supported. When I got my first real job after college, I started helping her financially without her asking. I paid for part of her tuition when scholarships didn't cover everything, bought her a used car when hers died, and helped with rent a few times. I never kept score because I loved her and genuinely wanted her to succeed. When she got engaged last year, she asked me to be her maid of honor. I was honestly touched because I assumed she would pick one of her friends. During that conversation, she started crying and told me she was stressed about money because weddings are expensive and her fiancé's family was not contributing much. I told her not to worry and that I could help where I could. I want to be clear that she did not ask for a specific amount at that point. I offered because I knew I could afford it and I wanted her to have a nice day. Over the next few months, my help turned into something much bigger. I paid the deposit for the venue, covered her dress when she found one slightly over budget, and paid for the photographer because it was non-negotiable for her. Each time, she thanked me and told me how lucky she was to have me. I started to feel a little uneasy, but I told myself it was temporary and worth it. Things started to change when she became closer to one of her fiancé's cousins, 27F. They bonded over fitness and social media, and suddenly this cousin was everywhere. My sister began taking her advice over mine, even on things I was already handling. Then, about 2 months before the wedding, my sister called me and said she wanted to make a change. She said she thought it would be better if the cousin became maid of honor because they were in the same phase of life and could relate better. She said I could still stand beside her as a bridesmaid and that it did not mean she loved me any less. I was hurt, but I tried to be understanding. What really bothered me was that she framed it as a practical decision, not an emotional one, after everything I had done. I asked her if I had done something wrong. She said no, that I had been amazing, and then immediately asked if I could still cover the remaining balance for the catering because contracts were due soon. I told her I needed time to think. A week later, at a family dinner, she made a joke in front of everyone about how I was her personal bank and laughed. People laughed with her. I felt humiliated. I pulled her aside afterward and told her that comment really hurt me. She rolled her eyes and said I was being sensitive and that everyone knew I was generous anyway. That was the moment something snapped for me. I told her I would not be paying for anything else related to the wedding. I said I would still attend and support her emotionally, but financially I was done. She accused me of trying to punish her and said I was ruining her wedding over my ego. Our parents called me later and said I should not add stress and that family helps family. They reminded me that I make more money than her and that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events. Since then, the situation has escalated. My sister sent me a long message saying she felt abandoned and that I was choosing money over her happiness. She also said that stepping down as maid of honor was proof that she did not need me as much as I thought I did, which honestly felt like a knife. Some relatives have stopped talking to me, and others have hinted that I am selfish. A few friends agree with me and say I was being taken advantage of. I keep replaying everything in my head. I wonder if I set the tone by always helping her and never setting boundaries. I also wonder if I should have just sucked it up and paid, since I had already contributed so much. At the same time, I cannot shake the feeling that my value to her shifted from sister to wallet, and once I pushed back, I became the villain. The wedding is in 3 weeks. I have not been uninvited, but communication is cold and minimal. I am honestly dreading the day instead of looking forward to it. I never wanted to hurt my sister, but I also do not want to feel used anymore. AITA for refusing to continue paying for my sister's wedding after being demoted and publicly embarrassed. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.